Year's Eve for 3 nights.
Lovely.
So that'd be cool. What are you doing?
I don't know yet, although really frustratingly, I've just noticed that for some reason my OBS decided to mute my microphone until just now. So I've just noticed that my mic wasn't fucking recording until just now. So we'll have to start from here. So all that stuff we talked about Christmas, we'll have to bin off. Oh God, OBS.
How are you today anyway?
I'm good. On the run up to Christmas now, so everything at work is dying down and quietening as people are going on leave and all that kind of stuff. I've had some really stressful last few days, to be honest with you. We've got a lot of problems. Yeah, like we have to deliver lots and lots of different projects all the time, and it means coordinating all sorts of different human resources, all sorts of skill levels, all sorts of people at these problems, and without consistent management, it's easy to lose grip of what you're trying to achieve. Anyway, one of the problems I've had recently is that we've got one guy who is very high up at the company, very important, very decision maker, doesn't like one of the engineers because one of the engineers that we need to do lots of work isn't particularly productive in a fast turnaround, delivering stuff kind of perspective. What he is good at though is the sort of stuff that I need him for. And because I work on more the sort of documentation side and the governance side, he's really good at delivering output and noticing where there are gaps on that side. And so for me, I really like him. I think he's a good bloke and he produces a lot of good material. And he's quite happy to do deep dives into stuff that other people are not so happy to do. And so there's this weird disconnect where it's just a problem because we've got this one guy who needs stuff turned around quickly, who doesn't really like him because of his complete inability to do anything at speed, and my perspective, which is completely at odds with his. And so I'm just trying to work out how to better place this engineer, and it's really difficult to manage that, especially in a dynamic team where it's relatively flat. We're trying to not have the situation where you've got strict hierarchies and you've got managers micromanaging people and you've got strict tasks and all that kind of stuff. And so to try and coordinate that effort is so difficult, and it's really time consuming. And this is something that people don't tell you. When you become a manager of people, it is way harder managing people than it is your job and your day-to-day workload. Well, for some it is, at least. For me especially, I'm really having a hard time doing that because I guess I'm typically more interested in engineering solutions and coming up with, working on the tech as opposed to working on the people, and people management is its own skill. It's difficult.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. If you're not interested in like people management, like you did that job because you're interested in IT, the fact that you have to have like a B2B customer service kind of thing going on at the same time sucks, because that's the bit that's the most boring, but it's a good skill to have when you're good at it.
It's not even B2B. It's mostly it's subordinate, superordinate stuff. It's manager to delegate stuff. I'm trying to work, just trying to manage people,
if you could just do your job and not talk to people, that'd be great.
Well, it's not so much I don't want to talk to people. I'm happy to talk to people. I'm happy to talk a lot, actually. That's sometimes my problem, but coming full circle, it's just part of this job which I wasn't expecting to be as complicated as it is. And I haven't even yet.
Yeah, that's strange.
I haven't even yet dove into things like timesheets and billing. That's just going to be its own, nightmare. But
you're just becoming a manager.
Yeah, I know, which is like the worst thing. It's that old Dilbert cartoon. Do you know what Dilbert is?
Yeah, I know what Dilbert is.
Yeah, so there's this idea, this old comic strip of this idea where the worst thing you can possibly do to an engineer is to make him a manager. You might as well have sent him to a concentration camp. It's just something that's completely out of his comfort zone, and that's what it feels like.
I've had that so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. My job is definitely just customer service. I feel like there's hardly, apart from like learning how to use a CRM, that's it. That's literally it, and knowing a product. There's literally no technical stuff to mine.
How are you getting on with that? Because last time I spoke to you about your job, you were still building the pipeline. How are you getting on now?
Better. I've closed off. So you've got to close off a certain amount to hit your basic. You get that basic anyway, but they expect you to hit that amount. And then I have to do double of that to hit my OTE, which is like a lot more. It's like it's lots more than my wage. so right now, getting to that point is quite hard because I work in the cricket industry, and their seasons are like May until September most of the time. And we're working out of season, which means cricketers usually leave things to the last minute from what I can tell. And I started in August, which was when no one orders, because if you're playing cricket, you need your stuff before then. So you don't get anything between May and September. Then in September, they're just like, oh, we've just finished the season. We'll leave it until, we've calmed down a bit, have a bit of time off, and then we'll think about it. And then the next thing you know, the cricket clubs are usually the people that are in charge of like the communal grounds where you have bonfires at bonfire night, firework night. So they're usually busy with that. So if you don't get them, and Halloween. So you don't get hold of them, if you can't get hold of them in September or October, because they don't want to talk to you because it's like they want time off from cricket. Then suddenly in October, like, oh, we've got Halloween coming up. Then we got to deal with fireworks. So it's a bit busy at the moment. We'll talk to you back in November. Then in November, they might have 1 or 2 meetings, but not talk to each other. And then suddenly it's December and they're like, oh, it's too close to Christmas now. We'll have to wait until after Christmas. And then you've got 3 months of just rush. And apparently we get snowed under. But yeah, so I didn't think I was going to get there. I think I'm about to close off this week 30 grand of work, when compared to a month ago I had none.
Damn.
Or maybe 2 grand. So it's just jumped up. And it's just hoping that it keeps on going up like that. And if it doesn't and it slows back down again, I'm like, well, how am I supposed to get to that? Because that is about 25 or 30% of what I need to hit my basic targets. So there's still a lot more to do. But apparently when bulk orders come in, like some of the shops I'm closing may have like £6,000 bulk orders. So that's quite a big deal. That's quite a large chunk of money.
How do you stay motivated in a sales job? How do you do it? I know there's all sorts of motivations that all sorts of people have. You don't know. You don't have a clue. So literally, I don't know what it is. But if I can't, I have this like need to, when they say you have to do this and this and this makes money, I go, okay, I do that. And if they don't answer the phone, I'll keep trying. And I'll try different people at members, and I'll constantly, and then I'll task up reminders that I have to contact that same company. Whereas a lot of people at my job, if they see the target number, they see how much clubs are worth, and they only deal with the biggest ones, and then they slowly make their way down. Whereas I just, no matter how big the club is, I will contact them until I get a response. And most of the time it's a good response, because we are like I said before, we're a premium cricket company, so it's like a global, massive, high-profile company. So there's not often where you get someone being like, "Oh, stop bothering me with sales call." That doesn't happen because we're not that company. It's kind of like if you are an F1 fan, it's like having McLaren ring you. So it's like kind of good. It's like really positive usually, unless they're like up north and they think like milk is expensive. Yeah.
And then they're just like, no, you're too expensive. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're not for you then.
When I used to go door to door solar panel sailing, that was like hell on earth, because I would knock on people's doors and then have to come up with a good reason why a solar panel or 2 or 10 was a really good idea for these people. So I was asking, even though we had the government grants at the time, can you imagine that? Can you imagine a teenager knocking on your door now and saying, oh, just to let you know, I think you should spend 10, 12 grand on solar panels. Here's £500 government grant. Here's a feed-in tariff. Off you go. This is what you should do. You should definitely do it, because not only will it pay for yourself for everything, it'll pay for itself in 15 years, but it'll generate income for you for the rest of your life, and you never need to clean them, and we'll service them forever. That company I worked for not only did it go bust, but I think some of the guys were arrested because it was a scam. I think that's what it was, because we were trying to sell people on the idea that all they had to do was pay us a one-time fee. I think it was about £300 or £400, and so we would quote for free. Then they just had to pay that one-off fee. We then go off and do all the applications to the government for them, and then so they became our feed-in tariffs, and then we paid them money back. That was a fraction of what they were actually getting paid as part of the feed-in tariff, and we were trying to wrap all the contracts up in that end. I didn't have anything to do with that, but there was some shady stuff going on. really shady stuff going on in the mid-teens when I was doing that. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Sales jobs are really brutal. Sales jobs are really, really brutal. Like it's just where you lie. Like with cars, it feels like you're doing the right thing because someone's walking into your showroom and is there for a purpose that they want to buy a car.
Yeah.
So they are coming to you, and it's very rare that car sales goes outbound. They don't like look for people to buy cars, unless you're We Buy Any Car, which is the opposite. That people trying to find like sell cars. But as soon as you start bothering people that you're unsure on whether they want the product or not, that's when it starts getting it feels a bit dodgy. Like you're calling people and they're just like hanging up instantly, and you're just like, hey man, I'm just doing my job. It's like, I'm just trying to, do you need this product? No, we don't want the product. Cool, man, I'll move on.
Yeah,
but
bye.
Like, I'll feel the same way as that though. And then suddenly I'll get a call from a sales thing and they'll be like, hello, my name is Abul. I'm calling for, and I'll hang up within seconds. And I'm like, God, why do these people keep calling me?
Yeah.
I'm doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the worst thing. But with this job, it's like a little bit better because you're selling a solution and it's probably a solution they need.
Why do you think companies do that? Why do you think companies take the risk of outsourcing sales to people who don't understand the culture, who don't know how to strike up a conversation, who aren't familiar with their customer base? Why didn't they just would run that risk? I never understood that.
Yeah, it's weird.
I mean, a lot of them are scams as well. A lot of them have nothing to do with legit companies. A lot of them are just, scumbags trying to make a living elsewhere in the world, and they're struggling, so they just try and call us up and rip some money out of the Western Hemisphere. But
I assume some companies come up with an idea. They don't have the background for sales, so they just hire a third-party sales company.
Yeah,
you give them that product and you say, can you find customers for this? And that's when you get those problems of just big salespeople just calling around trying to get information. I assume that's what they do. That's not what we do.
I tell you what, though, the Indians love cricket, and I presume that was an Indian accent you were doing earlier. And I think actually, if you got a call from an Indian person to talk about cricket, that guy probably knows a lot more than you do about cricket.
I think my nan knows more about cricket than I do.
See, that's so good. It's so good that you can land in a sales job where you don't know the terrain particularly well, and yet you can just build that pipeline, build that work stream, keep your confidence up. Yeah, I mean, I've got to believe in it.
Yeah, some people can't do it. I do believe in the company, from what I've heard, but at the same time, there's a few other competitors that are about as good as us, but they have a few products that probably excel. Not the product itself, but the amount of products they have. Or like, there's one of our competitors has a pro line, a medium line, and like a cheap line.
Yeah.
And so many people don't see the benefit in having the pro line, which is basically the only thing we sell is like pro kit.
Yeah.
Same stuff that we give Cricket Wales. So like, yeah, it's just knowing that we're the best, but at the same time, if someone's worried about price, like, you're not going to be able to get as good as we get for a cheap price, and that's the only thing. And we're not that expensive, but people look at a company that's just an Indian manufacturer making random work t-shirts, putting a embroidered logo on it and saying it's a cricket shirt, and they're selling them £10 a shirt, and that's like amazing for some people.
How much of your stuff is made in the UK, do you know? Or in Europe, at least?
In
Can't be
Europe,
much.
No, I know we build the helmets at the place in Winchester.
Oh, okay.
The materials probably aren't English. And I know we are moving some stuff over to China at the moment because how much we're asking for we can't seem to get, or it's too expensive. Our margins aren't so good on a few things. So we're moving that over to China at the moment. I think some of it's still Indian because I guess it's where it's originated. And we're currently looking at cricket bats because we're not doing cricket bats right now. So we're looking into that. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to like the size of the company, because the name is global, but in actual fact, there's probably 50 of us in the UK, and there's probably 5 of them in Australia because they're big cricketers. And I think we have a contact that works for or a supplier in India. I'm unsure. I might be a bit off on that.
I tell you what, something I learned recently which blew my mind. I was listening to there's a guy called Mike Baker. He appears on Joe Rogan from time to time, and he's formerly CIA, although he might still be CIA. But I think there's a lot of noise in the news about this particular topic, which is that the company Huawei are or have done undercut many suppliers in the US and probably here too, in order to ensure that their kit was installed and not someone else's in telecommunications lines. So this sort of paved the way forward for the Chinese government to have access to enormous amounts of data and intellectual property to build profiles on people, to check out what our networks are like. And when I also started learning about TikTok as well, and I just heard that the US is considering banning TikTok because of the amount of spying that's going on. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I've heard some things. I mean, I heard Joe Rogan talking about their terms and conditions and how apparently China is like, if you look at TikTok in China, the kids get it filtered so that they just have education and it gets switched off at a certain time of day. So they're not like made stupid. And then they just feed all the crap into like other regions, like US and UK probably get it as well. By the sounds of it, I don't use it, but do you use it?
No.
Use it at all?
Yeah, a little. But I've had to firewall off TikTok because regardless of what they'll tell you or what you may think, when I look at the traffic that leaves my house, I've completely firewalled off China. So TikTok talks back to China all the time, and it sends a load of data back to that, or at least IP addresses associated with the Chinese address space. And I've noticed other bits of equipment that I've bought too. So I've got Hikvision CCTV cameras. Now I've got an analog system that records back to a digital DVR, but the cameras and the DVR attempt to talk back to China all the time. Every minute it's sending traffic, and it could just be run-of-the-mill usage and diagnostic data, for example, which is not uncommon. But they're sending every now and then. It will send a block of data, or it'll attempt to, because I intercept it and block it. It'll attempt to send data that's in excess of a meg or 2 meg, and I think they're trying to send payloads of visual data from the cameras themselves. That's what I think, which is terrible.
Yeah, possibly.
It's so terrible. It's like, I haven't given a company permission to do that, and I don't care that. Yeah, sure, some of these more advanced ones have cloud-based systems. That's probably what it's trying to do. It's trying to talk to a cloud system and trying to integrate with my user account, all that kind of stuff, where it can send alerts and maybe feed an AI that learns about usage and pattern recognition to see whether someone's walking up to your door or a car's driving up or something. But I didn't tick a box.
It's probably nothing like malicious, and they're probably not like trying to spy on you or something, but it's just there is a chance that they could if they wanted to.
And that's the thing. I think they do. And the reason why I think they do is not that I think there's a warehouse full of Chinese people looking at cameras, but what I do think definitely is the case is that if they can, let's say this, for example, let's say someone who works high up in government and you use TikTok, and the association that they can have based on network scans that TikTok does with this individual, if they can find out any kind of identifying information from you, or maybe from your messages, because TikTok can read your plain text messages, WhatsApp. I believe it can read WhatsApp. I believe it can read iMessage and Android messages and texts and things and emails. They're all plain text and non-encrypted. So let's say it links you to this person in a meta kind of way. What they can then do is start building a profile on you and this individual that they're trying to gather information on, and in key times where it knows you're around, or maybe it maps a phone, for example, because it's constantly scanning Wi-Fi. Maybe it maps this person's phone on the Wi-Fi to this, it links the two together, and now suddenly they've got a node on their network, you, to gain access to this person's data. And it might just be that they just want to know where this person is, or try and get additional information. Maybe you've been texting each other, maybe he starts telling you about projects he's working on, maybe he tells you some more names he's working with or affiliated with, and suddenly you've got this big picture building, and you're just gathering intelligence on this individual. And then maybe that's all done automatically, and when they connect some dots together, maybe then a person looks at it, and then maybe that person looks at, he's in the same room as this individual, let's turn his mic on, let's turn his camera on. and let's start getting
a little
data.
bit dodgy then.
Super dodgy. Maybe they know that I'm someone, this person's working on a big project that, there's millions of pounds at stake, or there's a lot of intellectual property at stake. Well, let's start recording some stuff. Let's start recording and transmitting emails. Let's make, maybe we find out your email address or your government ID, blah, 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 and. And so this is how it all works. And so I don't think that they're constantly monitoring everything you do all the time. And then let's say, for example, that, you've got that pitch has been started to be built, and then, we know a bit about this guy. And guess what? He's got some bad cameras mounted on his house. So let's start figuring out when he's in. Oh, now we know when he's in. Now we know where he goes to work. And so now if we go to war with this country, we know where this guy is, or something like that. So who knows?
That'd be
so creepy.
A bit worrying. I'd really hope that WhatsApp and iMessage and people like that, they always say it's encrypted, but I don't know on what scale it's encrypted, because I'm not much into tech.
I think iMessage is, I think WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted, but what I don't, the thing is, it's decrypted on your device. So
because you're reading it, right?
So it's possible, surely it's possible, that the app, even if the app's minimized, can have access to that. There must be a way. There must be a way.
Probably.
You grant it permission to your camera, to your contacts, to everything. So you tell it, you can have access to all that. So it's got that information already.
TikTok definitely seems like one of those things where there's been so much controversy with it being a bit spy that I don't want to be part of it. I mean, I don't find it interesting. Instagram's pretty cool, and Facebook I use for selling. Yeah. And then I use WhatsApp and things like that, but try and keep it to that at minimal. Yeah. I don't really want to use more than Instagram at the moment.
I'm already starting to feel the pull of using social media. I'm a bit of a slave to it. At least I was when I was much younger. But I've got to start staying away from it, because I'm going to fall into that pattern of constant habitual use if I'm not careful.
Well, you didn't use anything for ages. Yeah. You just got Instagram, I could see, but I don't think you spend much time on it.
No, not really. Did you see that post I put up about salting the slug though? Got like 3,000 views.
Yeah, I did see that.
I'm chuffed with that.
Animal welfare, love it.
Fucking slugs, I hate them. Nasty little shitbags.
I put the reel up on Instagram of us talking about something. You talking about Intel or whatever it was.
Oh yeah.
That's up to 500 views.
Oh wow.
I know, surprising. And that's still slowly going up. Instagram's definitely the way forward, but you need enough posts already going. And right now, I think if I started an Instagram for this, I feel like we'd put one post out. It'd be weeks. And then we put another one out when it needs to be daily. So I think if we opened an Instagram account with a few reels, a few photos, a few screenshots, then just constantly put up information every couple of days.
Well, what I'm hoping is that we can take sections from these conversations and use these as sort of talking points. So I'd like to see more of that. I think that would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think those reels are quite good.
Yeah, definitely. Because although this is definitely just one conversation, we're covering lots of topics.
Yeah, I feel like that, and it's good because I think you've got more of a intellect with things on a deeper level. Whereas I'm more interested in kind of, I don't know, normal
impulsive masturbation
stuff.
Yeah.
Compulsive masturbation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I love talking about constantly.
Oh, I tell you what, speaking of things that you love talking about, did you hear about what the Oxford County Council were going to do? Did you hear about this, about doing a climate lockdown? Did you hear about this?
Yeah, I think you told me about that possibly.
Oh, good. I'm glad I did. What do you think about that? Would you want to do no more than 100 trips a year in your car?
No.
You'd move, wouldn't you?
I'd move. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. I like driving too much.
Okay, here's a question for you. You like driving too much. Imagine in a couple of years' time when people are saying in the government, but little old Henz, you drive too much and your car's really, really pollutant. Really pollutant. Unlike those clean, efficient diesels. We're gonna restrict. No, we're gonna tax you actually, because we know what car you've got. We know what year it was made. We're gonna specifically tax you more because you're polluting. What do you say about that?
There'll be ways around that, for sure. That's never. I don't think. What will happen is they will realized that electric cars probably aren't the way forward.
Yeah.
It's a solution for mid-grounds, but biofuels are probably where it's at. because you already have the cars made and biofuel runs off the engines that are already made. So there's a company in Belgium that I've been watching a lot of videos of because I don't read. And they've got a biofuel that they build in Belgium, and they've now sponsored the WRC, World Rally Championship.
That's cool.
So now all the WRC is not carbon neutral, but carbon zero or carbon balanced. I can't remember, carbon positive. It's whatever it means, that they're still emitting carbon to produce what they're doing, but what they're producing isn't emitting more carbon.
Net
they're recycling zero.
Is it net zero? Net zero.
Yeah. So what they're doing is they're recycling the CO2 in the air to make the fuel.
I heard something somewhere that they were talking about using an algae in the sea, and you could grow as much algae as you wanted, and it would make diesel for you. You just sort of you just wring it out. You just wring it out into a big vat on a ship, and then if you want more diesel,
sense.
you just grow more algae.
I don't know if algae makes oil, but it probably makes some sort of slippy, flammable. I don't know.
Well, I think they can make
substance.
the organic compounds that you can then easily turn into maybe some sugars or something. You can then, it's an easy way to make it into diesel. Yeah.
I mean, the biofuel's cool. I think that's where it's going to be at.
But isn't biofuel just oil? Just the oil that we already use?
No. So I can't remember the science. I did know quite a bit for a very small amount of time, and it disappeared out of my mind. But it's basically they're just recycling the CO2 in the air, mixed with some sort of something or other, and they don't use oil from the ground.
Right.
So, but the thing is the most important thing is that biofuel, it can run any normal combustion engine.
Right.
There was a good video recently where Seen Through Glass, which is a well-known automotive YouTuber in the UK, he went down to P1 Fuels in Belgium, filled up his Ferrari 360, which is just a normal Ferrari 360 that he loves. They filled up with this biofuel, and it ran 100% like normal.
Damn.
And they also run like 1900s like vintage Bentley blowers and stuff, and super old vintage cars on it, classic cars from like pre-war.
Is this because the octane is good enough compared to regular fuel?
Yeah, they do two types of fuel. They do a race fuel, which is what the WRC use, I think. Yeah. And then they also do a normal fuel that you and I would buy. At the moment, though, because they don't have enough money going into it. Yeah. Obviously, it's super expensive, like everything, until there's more development. So at the moment, they're saying the average price is £10 per litre.
Oh my God.
But if they got someone like F1 to sign off on it, which is nearly impossible because Shell is like a massive part of F1. But if they manage to get more kind of motorsport companies, they can do the R&D, it'll get more popular. And then the hope is that they just take over one of the fuel stations that we already have built, instead of building a whole new charging rig, for example, with Tesla and things like that. They just take over a petrol station, fill those big old tanks underneath the ground with their biofuel, and they just start going.
I think that's the way forward, to be honest. We've got so much infrastructure right now invested in combustion. It just seems like a complete waste of time. Not complete waste of time. It doesn't seem like the most efficient way forward to rip all that stuff out of the ground, to change that entire economy and do something else. Yeah,
I know, especially when you take into account like to build the batteries or to build the cars, it's going to produce carbon, because not all car manufacturing companies are built with solar panels. They're not all like Tesla. But even then, Tesla, where's all the battery chemicals, minerals, whatever you want to call it, whatever the stuff is that comes out of the ground, that's still a finite material. So they still got to find that, and it's not like they've got enough electric cars out there to recycle from old electric cars. I think someone said that it takes 100,000 miles in a Tesla at the moment before you start being carbon neutral from the ground up.
100,000 miles.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like my Golf GTI, it's probably terrible for the planet. Same as the Audi, the diesel Audi. But that was made 17 years ago. No, 13 years ago, 15 years ago. And it was made once 15 years ago. And now it's managed to do 120,000 miles So whereas a Tesla has to do 100,000 miles before it getting built counteracts the good it's doing. And that will go down. I imagine those are old stats as well. Since then, they've probably gone more solar powered and more special, so it's probably less. But yeah,
But
Volvo did a really good post like that.
What was it? He told Leonardo DiCaprio that it would take 10 gigafactories to get to the point where he could power the world with sustainable energy, because he produced enough batteries and enough solar energy to do that. I think was right. Was that right?
I saw that. Yeah,
that can't
I saw
be
that.
true. Is that true?
I didn't know it was Leo, but I doubt it's. I don't know. It's probably
Leo.
true. It's probably true technically.
Yeah.
But like whether that's just like a technical theoretical thing, and then once you actually get building all the solar panels, once you take all the manufacturing process into account, it's probably billions of pounds that now he's dumped loads into Twitter, and that's probably gone to shit now.
Every couple of years as well, you see some like fantastical video like solar roadways, or you see some stupid post about why don't we just turn the desert into a big solar farm? And it's like you try and transmit power, it is horrendously inefficient trying to transmit it. I heard a stat that somewhere between this could be wrong and it's probably bullshit, but it's blew my mind when I heard it. Somewhere between 5 and 10% of all power we generate is lost in the grid, just heating the wires, getting the power to you. So how on earth can you expect to turn all of sub-Saharan Africa into a processing station for solar energy because you've thrown 1 billion panels out into the desert? You can't transmit the power. You can't send it to the people who need it. And then when the sun goes down, it stops. And you haven't got anywhere near batteries.
Well, what people forget is that the solar panels is all great and they're fantastic. They hit and then they make power. But that power's got to be stored somewhere into a battery. So you still have to have a battery made. And that's probably where it starts losing its authenticity, I guess.
Its effectiveness, The sun goes down,
you're
the
going
wind
to
stops.
have to build a bunch of batteries. At nighttime, you're going to start losing that power because I assume you're going to have a bunch of lights and a bunch of like heating and things like that to keep everything running properly. So the batteries are actually going to start costing themselves. Like they're start going to run down at night to run those things. Then you've got to staff it. Then you've got to build the whole process of getting the power from those batteries into a big something or other to move then the power. So everything's got to be done, and it'll be like a 30-year to do the whole Texas thing, to run the whole of the United States or whatever he was on about. That means you have to find all that land, buy that, do planning. Then you've got to build all the solar panels, put those down. Then you've got to get all the batteries, put those down. Then you've got to get the infrastructure to power those batteries back to wherever you got to go. Then that's got to go into the grid somehow, which will be linked to some place. And
but that's the thing, isn't it? Even if you had all that, even if you could snap your fingers and all that happened now, let's say a sheik came over from Saudi Arabia somewhere and just splurged loads of cash on solar panels, you've then got the problem of transmitting the power. So even if you turn Texas into a giant solar field, you can't get the power from Texas you can't transmit it over any long distance. So you need to have multiple Texases.
And you start losing all that power through distance as well, right?
Yeah, transmission loss, that's it.
Yeah. So you're going to have that problem as well.
Yeah. Damn.
It's cool though. Like I think it would be cool because if you think about yourself, it'd be cool to see your place because you've got pretty high up. There's nothing around you blocking the sun, and you've got quite a lot of roof space. I wonder what it would be like if you could power your whole house on solar alone over the summer by putting a bunch of solar panels up there.
So I had a solar survey done, and they found that we could power about 60% of our house based on the roof angles and what we've got. The only way it would be effective in the long term was if I had a battery. So I'd need a Tesla Powerwall or an equivalent, whatever. But to get the cost of that would push it way out beyond seeing any return inside of 15, 20 years. It would be 25 plus years. And then I'd have to replace the battery because it would have gone through so many charge-discharge cycles that it would have gone. So that'd been it. Dude, I think I'm going to have to go because I think people are coming in now. So I got to knock this on the head.
Okay, cool. Well, have a great day.
Stop. Yeah, you too, man. I'll send you some messages about this and we'll put some more posts up online. And I think we should start on Instagram. That'd be great.
Will do.
Cool, man. Catch you later on.
Later, dude.
Cheers, bye.